specifically bottom-up governance of an organisation. And we're very grateful to you for coming before us with your particularly unique and if you like, sort of different angle coming at this approach. And I think what I'd like to start by asking you, if I may, is as an anthropologist, and with the exposure you've had to the banking sector, can you describe us how we should go about assessing a bank's culture?
Well, I suppose the hardest thing with regards to this question is something I'm battling with too, is that I can't actually observe the bankers, so I have to rely on their reporting. So I would almost say install microphones on banking desks, because there's just such a vast gap between what people say they do, what they think they do, what they will tell you they do, and what actually seems to happen. And so I'd like to sort of preface everything that I'm going to say by these two sort of methodological points, is that I'm relying on what people tell me, and I'm relying on volunteers. So I have this blog, and people can sign up for an interview, and so I meet them, and we anonymize the interview. I send the transcript of the interview to them, and they check it for accuracy, balance, and identifiable detail, and then it goes online, and often they come into the comment thread and then engage with the readers.
It's quite interesting because to a certain extent, to start off with, you've got a bit of a self-selecting group of interviewees. I mean, do you think the blog then brings out the less self-selecting part of it? I mean, do you think it widens it sufficiently to give a good analysis of culture?
I think it can never be a full analysis, because there's always a self-selection towards people with a grudge or an axe to grind or some sort of reason to step out of the culture which is very much organized around silence. I was struck by some of the interviews that come in from volunteers, because I always ask them, why would you risk your job by talking to someone from The Guardian? We are the enemy. And many of them are Guardian readers, and many of them feel, I think they're worried about two things. One is that they're worried about the wrong sort of regulation based on a misunderstanding of the sector. And the other one is that they feel they get a raw deal in public opinion. In my experience, almost every profession feels that if others would know more about them, then they would realize how valuable they are. But this idea of taking ownership of the conversation and reading two interviews online, both M&A bankers, and then saying, look, I have a completely different experience, and I'd like to see that experience also on the web, I thought was very encouraging, and really belies the idea of they're all the same, they're all working together, they know what they're doing, and they're all working against the rest of us. And these emails coming in saying, I like your blog because I finally understand a little bit of what they're doing on the 7th floor. And so this hugely, I think one of the things that sort of emerges from the blog is just how huge the sector is and how hugely diverse. And the idea of one silver bullet that will address all these different activities on all these different levels, I think is something we need to do away with, because if you're in structured finance or project finance, or you're on the trading floor, or you're in corporate finance, or you're a corporate banker, these activities are so different.
Tell me, my next question then you may not be able to answer, but it was based on what you've seen and the observations you've made. How would you describe the overall banking culture at the wholesale banks? But presumably that is an extraordinarily open-ended question, depending on which part of the bank you're talking about.
Yes.
Would you like to have a crack at it anyway? Though?
Yes, of course. As a journalist, we like these generalizations. Yes, so there's these usually different activities, and then I think if there's one big divide, it would be between back office and mid office and front office. I think that's a sort of overriding sense of identity people have, whether they're in one of these three. And some of these anecdotes are just so telling about. I spoke to a gay banker who felt that who wanted to organize a networking event for gay bankers for bankers who were gay in his bank. So he finally got a lot of people he knew who were out to come to the thing, until these bankers realized that there would be gay bankers from the back office, middle office, and front office. And then the front office gay banker said, no, I'm not going to go to an event with the back office bankers. So
that's really
I think that really tells you something about how deep these things go. Or another I've spoken to quite a few compliance people where they talk about how they would go for a football match, say every second Wednesday of the month, with the traders. So that was interesting in itself. The traders would be one team, and the compliance people would be another team. And then one day they were late, and so they had to take taxis. And so the traders, they claimed it through expenses, no problem. The compliance people tried to claim the same taxi fare through expenses. No, it was refused. And they took it all away, and it took weeks. Because the compliance people took this very seriously. Why should bankers be allowed, the traders be allowed to clear it, and we don't? And again, this idea of this double standards in treating similar costs for front office and middle office, and then middle office taking such offense at what was essentially a £10
this is very, very interesting, because I mean, this one of my later questions is going to be about this class divide, but you raise it now, and I think it's good to explore this. I mean, what's driving this class divide between the front office? I mean, I suspect it's due to who's a commission or profit generator and who's perceived to not be a profit generator. But can you expand on that?
I think it's exactly what you said. Ultimately, it's the strikers versus the defenders. So if a defender does really well, in the end it's 0-0, and so you were where you began.
And how does this manifest itself? I mean, do the traders look down on their middle office and back office staff, and do the back office staff look back up resentfully at them?
Yeah, and it's expressed in clothes. So back office and middle office people tell me, I know, even walking through Canary Wharf, whether somebody is front office or back office. It's just if your salary is 4 times, or your pay is 4 times as high, you will buy more expensive watches, more expensive. The watch communication. I think if I'm ever going to do a PhD, it will just be about watches in the financial sector. And I know about hedge fund sales managers who have 20 watches. And depending on whether they go to a pension fund, they wear a cheaper watch than when they go to a wealthy family. Because they want to communicate different things by signaling wealth. And so that's its pay. And so back office people talk about, they know when a colleague is having to call a front office person, because usually the colleague reaches a number of times for the phone before he picks it up.
Yeah, I mean, do you think this is a very unhealthy situation? I mean, from a practical point, and as you obviously understand, we're trying to resolve this perceived problem with the bank, the real problem with the bank. Do you think this is a fundamental issue, that you've got this breakdown between relations between one side and the other?
Yeah, though I'm not sure it's breakdown. I think it emerges from the very basic of how banking is organized. And just like in football, you will always pay the striker more than the goalkeeper. This is similar. And the more compliance you have, the more money the front office people have to make. And so to avert a loss, it's very difficult to put a number on a loss you avert by intervening as risk. But it's very simple to put a number on a trade you made. And so there is this asymmetry. And what would happen if you would start paying, say, people in back and middle office the same as front office? I don't think it's been tried so far.
Here's a very important question, though. Do you think that this class divide results in the middle and back office not pushing back hard enough against the front office when they perceive them to be doing something wrong?
Yeah.
A sort of oppression of the back office. I mean, so should a trader want to do a trade that is of dubious compliance quality, do you think that trader will have an arrogance about him that will allow him in his own judgment to get on and do the trade, irrespective of what he thinks the back office will tell him, even to the point where he would have a stand-up row with the compliance officer in his floor in order to force the trade through against the compliance officer's better judgment? Do you think that happens?
I think it does happen. I think I'm not sure at all how prevalent it is, because we're talking traders again, a commodity trader or a derivatives trader or flow, prop, very very different sort of activities. Again, but the kind of the front office, especially trading, seems to select for a kind of testosterone-infested alpha male, and that is just not the kind of temperament you find among back office and middle office people. And I think it's to survive on the trading floor, you need that. There's very little time. Your acting on incomplete information in a highly dynamic environment, deeply time sensitive. And so nice guys finish last on the trading floor. And I think it's what traders tell me is that how difficult it is to shut this off when you're sort of switching to another area in your life, be it the coffee lady who takes so long in getting you your change, or your wife, or your friends, or the back office. And so there is a very deep psychological and cultural factors at work. And then, especially with this is changing now with the glorification of the trader, even the way Goldman Sachs is glorified. So not so much as the nicest guy in the room, but the most impressive guy in the room. And then, your back office, you make maybe a tenth of what the trader makes. Nobody knows who you are. You have to come to the trader. That's another thing. I was speaking to a compliance person yesterday, and he was just explaining how he's a director, and if he's in the middle office, and if he goes to the managing director never comes to his office. He has to go to the office of the managing director. But then if the managing director has to go to a front office managing director, he goes to the front. The front never comes to the middle office. So again, there's this sort of spatial hierarchy.
Have you done any observations in other industries to compare it with? I mean, is this a very unique type of approach with this sort of highly testosterone fueled alpha male on the dealing desk, basically throwing his weight around, or is this pretty predominant?
Well, I'm a journalist, so you know us.
So how is it at the Guardian?
Well, so I've only been at the Guardian for 18 months, but my background in anthropology is religious anthropology in Egypt, in the slums. So that's quite different. I've asked this question to most of my interviewees, whether there was a qualitative difference. And I think most would say that at some point quantity shifts or evolves into quality. So simply the money available seems to allow the banks to treat their staff in a way that in the end produces this culture. And so you will, software people in the software industry have told me, look, we read your blog and it's very, very similar. Sales-driven, exploiting information asymmetries, crazy hours, those sort of things. But ultimately, since there was less money to go around, there was less money for severance pay that paid for silence. There was less money for PR, for public affairs, for all these sort of things that banks now have because they make these huge margins thanks to their oligopoly. That also help create this atmosphere in the workplace where you treat people very badly but then pay them really well. And that I haven't come across another industry where this is similar. Then again, I haven't been around much.
I mean, on the subject of treating people badly, I'm quite interested about the role of the line managers, so the heads of desks and the heads of departments. Presumably, in many cases, those line managers have started as clerks on the desk and moved up through the ranks as they've trained up. Do you think they're reinforcing this culture, or do you think they have a role to play to try and negate that culture?
Well, I've spoken mostly to people junior, so a handful of managing directors, mostly below that level, if only because it becomes increasingly difficult to hide people's identity. So there are much fewer MDs than vice presidents. And so the way they talk about the managing director or the line manager, it's just I'm struck how diverse it is. So they will tell you, I've had 5 managers so far, 3 were absolutely fantastic, 2 were complete psychopaths. And if I would say, so is banking populated by bad people? Most of my interviews would say no. The problem is not that they're all bad, the problem is that the ones that are bad are tolerated, and if they make a lot of money, even glorified. And so you're just really out of luck with a mildly psychopathic manager, because this person controls your life, and especially in the most competitive banks where they have these regular cullings of the herd. So you know that every year your line manager is going to sit down with human resources and cross out one name on the team.